Sarah Emma Edmonds will forever be known as a hero who took a stand for her beliefs and saved many lives in the process.
Sarah Emma Edmonds was born in December of 1841 in New Brunswick, Canada, to Isaac and Betsy Edmondson. She was born as the sixth child in the family and the fifth girl. As a farming family, their father had hoped for a male child to help with the more laborious duties.
Isaac's desire for a son is where much of the hate for Sarah is believed to have stemmed from. Isaac was cruel to the girls and made them work hard.
Sarah's life changed when she was given a book as a gift. The story was called Fanny Campbell, the Female Pirate Captain. This book told the story of a girl who dressed up as a man to save her lover who was taken by pirates. After going through many adventures, she found her true love and lived happily ever after.
For Sarah, the story of Fanny Campbell was a dream. She told herself one day she would run away from her home and pursue a similar adventure as Fanny Campbell.
At the age of 17, Sarah's father married her off to an elderly neighbor, and though she did not want to do it, she agreed. Eventually, she realized it wasn't worth it to live her whole life in misery and decided to run away. A year later, after Sarah's escape, she dressed up as a man and used the alias Franklin Thompson, then moved to Hartford, Connecticut as a Bible salesman.
At this time, a war was erupting, and President Abraham Lincoln was looking for 75,000 recruits to join the Union. The war was to be fought for the rights of slaves and for state rights. This war was known as the Civil War and began on April 12, 1861.
By the time news of war had spread to Edmonds, she decided to enlist under her alias Franklin Thompson in the 2nd Michigan Infantry.
Edmonds was an ardent Unionist, and she knew that she could not watch soldiers fight for her beliefs without participating in the fight, as she wrote in her later account of her life. It was not my intention or desire to seek my own personal ease and comfort when so much sorrow and distress filled the land.
Sarah was accepted into the regiment on May 25, 1861, as a 3-year recruit to perform the job of a male field nurse. Because there was no medical examination needed, Sarah was still assumed to be a man. Edmonds and her regiment were not part of the First Battle of Manassas initially, but she was instrumental to the Union retreat. She stayed behind as the soldiers fled and nursed the wounded. In fact, she barely managed to elude capture from the Confederate Army.
In March of 1862, Sarah was to become a mail carrier and was shipped off to Virginia with her regiment. For a month, she fought as a soldier in the Battle of Yorktown.
It was during this battle that Sarah was put on her first mission as a spy. The soldier who had worked as a spy previously during this fight had been caught and executed by the Confederates, so Edmonds volunteered to take his place. She did this because she wanted to be a bigger part of the fight against slavery. Her first duty was to dress up as a slave, which included darkening her skin with silver nitrate. While she worked in the kitchen, she eavesdropped on conversations and returned with vital information. She found that during the battle in Yorktown, the Confederates planned to use Quaker guns, which were logs painted to look like cannons from a distance. She located many of the fake weapons and reported back to General McClellan with the information. Just months later, Sarah was sent out again with a new assignment. This time, she used the alias Bridget O'Shea, who was an Irish peddler. Edmonds returned with medical supplies, as well as a stolen horse and vital military information. She is believed to have gone into the Confederate lines 12 times, each time coming back alive and with more valuable knowledge.
In May of 1862, Sarah worked for hours on end carrying wounded soldiers on stretchers in the pouring rain during the Battle of Williamsburg. She also participated as a mail carrier in the Battle of Fredericksburg as well as the Second Manassas. She later wrote in her account of her life, "I could but feel assured of termination of the conflict and look forward with eager anticipation to the day when that mighty host would advance upon my enemy and like an overwhelming torrent sweep rebellion from the land." Every day, Sarah continued to fight for the hope that one day slavery would be abolished.
in 1863, Sarah contracted malaria and left the regiment with the fear that someone may discover her true gender while being hospitalized.
After Sarah's recovery, she planned to rejoin the Union but was classified as a deserter in April of 1863 and therefore could not go back under the name Franklin Thompson. As she stated in her writing, I had been suffering for weeks with chills and fever until I became discouraged. All the quinine the doctors gave me but seemed to increase the vehemence of the malady, and I was advised to apply for leave of absence. I and one or two other hospital attendants did so, and our furloughs were made and sent out to headquarters for approval. Weary days we watched for those papers I shall never forget, but when they did come, mine alone came back disapproved. That same evening I left in disguise, but from my standpoint, I never for a moment considered myself a deserter. I simply left because I could hold out no longer, and to remain and become a helpless patient in the hospital was sure discovery, which to me was far worse than death. Even after Sarah was removed from the Union and could not fight for her adopted country, she continued to take a stand in as many ways as she could. Edmonds still worked as a nurse and still treated many injuries caused by the Civil War, even though she could no longer be a field nurse.
Sarah became an author in 1864 with a book entitled Nurse and Spy in the Union Army. In this book, Sarah shared the story of her life in the Civil War as a nurse and a spy, and shared the story of other incredible men in the Army. Sarah's book sold 175,000 copies, and Sarah decided to give the profit to the sanitary commissions, which helped sick and wounded soldiers in the Union Army. Though Sarah could no longer participate in the regiment, she still supported the Union to the fullest extent to try to make what she stood up for a reality.
Though Sarah was not the only woman in history to join the Union pretending to be a male, she was the first to publish her fight to abolish slavery.
Sarah reunited with many of her comrades from the 2nd Michigan Infantry to petition the government to remove the word deserter from Franklin Thompson's name and to grant Sarah a full veteran's pension for her service. Sarah persuaded the government through her writing and through testimonials written by her comrades to allow her to be the first woman to receive a full veterans of $12 per month. Sarah also persuaded the government to get the word deserter uplifted from her name. The Committee of Invalid Pensions concluded that though by the rules of war a deserter, yet her course and conduct after shows the same zeal in the service of her country in her proper character as actuated her when she first dedicated herself to the cause which she felt to be the highest and noblest that can actuate man or woman.
In the end, many only remember Sarah Emma Edmonds as a figment of our history with little to no significance. But Sarah was so much more. Sarah was a brave, influential woman who took a stand.